Okay, everybody, if I could have your attention, please. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Erica Abushark, and I work for Catholic Peace Ministry, one of the organizations that is helping to sponsor this important conference today. So this is the No Way to Treat a Child initiative. If you're in the correct room, then you're going to be learning a lot, I think, today from our two presenters in particular, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them, and then I'll let them go ahead and get started. So Elizabeth Lees, she's a teacher. She has taught middle school, high school, that sort of thing. She's an activist, been involved in volunteering all her life to improve the lives of children. She joined the Middle East Peace Education Coalition this past spring, and the issue of incarcerated Palestinian minors is near and dear to her heart because her husband and son are Palestinian. She is Muslim and converted to Islam of her own in 2006. So welcome to Elizabeth. And this is Katie Herder. Katie goes back and forth between the Midwest here, Nebraska, Iowa, and the Middle East, having most recently returned from Palestine in April. So Katie currently serves as the Vice President of the Board of Directors of Interfaith Peace Builders, as a member of Nebraskans for Peace Palestinian Task Force in Omaha, Nebraska. Katie previously worked as the Middle East Peace Building Associate for American Friends Service Committee, working locally in Iowa and Nebraska on Palestinian justice efforts, supporting and working in partnership with local communities, faith groups, students, and others. She also works nationally as part of AFSC's Israel-Palestine Joint Program on launching and supporting AFSC's No Way to Treat a Child campaign and more. So welcome to Katie. Just as a side note, as someone who, like many of you, has been thinking about this issue for a long time, I will say that I find this program and this initiative to be a really interesting angle if you're speaking with people about Palestine and Israel for the first time. Because if there's nothing else we can hopefully somewhat get behind, it's issues of how children and minors, youth are being treated in our world. So this might be an interesting angle for you. I hope you learned some new things today, and we'll have some time for questions at the end. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We want to make sure before we forget, just that everyone signs in, make sure we get your name and email and contact information, as well as at the end of the session today we will have a portion at 3 a.m. We want to make sure we save time. We really want everyone to leave here with committing to at least 2 to 3 tangible, concrete actions they're willing to take or collaborate on, even in this room. So this is going to be a very interactive workshop, and we hope that, like I said, everyone had, within this group itself, we can network and come up with some ideas and actual action plans leaving here today. So that's our goal. We're going to try to fit in a lot in this short hour. I want to maybe give a little bit, when we run down kind of just beginning to end, if it were. So just what is going to happen in this short hour, what we're going to try to achieve is, I'm going to give a little brief spiel about the No Way to Treat a Child campaign, the issue of child detention. This may be new to some. I see a lot of familiar faces in the room. So like I said, some of this may be information you already know. We're going to show the Detaining Dreams film, which is part of the campaign. We produced the film and premiered it in 2015 following the launch of the campaign in DC. So we did 3 days of action with the launch of the No Way to Treat a Child campaign, which was a vigil on the International Day of the Child outside the U.S. Capitol building, followed by a congressional briefing, and the third day was the premiere of the film. So we will show you the film. It's 22 minutes. And then after the film, that will be now our strategy session where we can go around. Again, we'll give a really short, brief nutshell of past and current legislative actions that are taking place and ways we can be organizing locally to be supporting those national efforts and what we are specifically going to be pushing on our local representatives. So that's a lot, but first I think, Elizabeth, you want to guide us in introducing everyone?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So each, just for clarification, so we want everyone to go around the room and introduce themselves.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, you know my name already, Elizabeth, and would you like to go ahead and start? Introduce yourself.
I'm Connie Hewan. and been downtown 18 times, and worked with Elizabeth on Newport and Nelson and on the Zero for 93 or so. In the last 2 years, we gave it over to another because we got more.
I'm Jane Beeman, and I'm going to Israel for the first time and wanted to know more about Palestine and religious practice before I go there. Educate, helpful.
That's wonderful.
I'm Carol Frederick, and my story is almost identical to that. I'm fairly new to this subject, but I'm going to be going to Israel and Palestine today because my friends and one of them want to talk about the issue that most going to leading and talking to people and
Kind of like you're trying to bounce forward.
Bryce and Zoe, years ago, and gave this, and also together.
Broken language. Yeah, you know, can't get me here.
My name is Michelle. I'm married to a Palestinian. I lived in Jerusalem for 3 years and worked at
I'm the one she's married to. My name is Osama Saba. I'm Palestinian. I live here right now, and of course, I've always been active with the issue of Palestine. It's in my life, my family, and it's just great to be here, see the work that's being done. Thank you.
Jody Mashik, I'm from Des Moines. Being my former colleague, I worked in the Foreign Service Committee, and I actually went on a delegation with her last year to Palestine, and it was focused on obtaining Palestinians, and specifically focused on children.
Well, 2 weeks, Jody.
I'm Renee Crouch. I've always been concerned about people who are civilians, and became more knowledgeable about the issue in my involvement with the AFSC and the corporate circle, and then continue to be very concerned, more and more concerned, I think, and here we live and try to figure out how to support it.
I'm Hank. Names, and I was in our first M5. We visited when we were able to talk to impact the children by abuse of
You ever think, I worked a lot with the AFSC, and we were actually, we are related. During the first intifada with the AFSC visitors, the residents at that time were Middle East representatives, and I'm going to certain on writing on that, but I think we've had this ongoing concern, and I was just telling AM today that because we were there with Horace and Marianne, who refueled the AFSC Middle East representatives at that time, we all, and they're both deceased now. We kind of carry this as our own concern and their our love and memory of them.
I'm Sandy Hanna from Omaha, and I'm on the leadership team of their Nebraskans for Peace Palestinian Rights Task Force. And I got to go with the Presbyterian Church, send 107 Presbyterians along with someone back here to walk the streets of Palestine and Israel and see what was happening, and it changed my life. And my grandma and my kids say they wish they'd send me to Hawaii. Shut up, it changes your life, and it's, we work very hard. Our group's goal or mission is to educate the Nebraska and Omaha community on this subject.
I'm Liz Gately, and I was completely ignorant about the subject until my daughter was really smart about all this international situation. Said, Mom, we need to know more about it.
So then I met Connie and, well, I knew Connie was, they further educated me. Then I met Maria from home. She further educated me. So now I just emailed, texting my daughter, so I know she's sitting here next to me, I'm so proud. And she's in California, so she loves me. But, I will say this, that, I really am. I'm really glad that I know more about it because I do have a lot of things, not things which my friends know about and I just know those things for them. And, they go to their things. So, I think it's good to start with children. So, there you go.
I'm Christine Shower, I'm learning about myself, ways out there doing, and I was really interested in outside as well. I learned more about it when I joined out of the 2010, and there's a lot of stuff, right?
My name is Sid Drake, I'm from Dubuque, Iowa, that's northeast Iowa. I became involved in this issue about 20 years ago and chaired a Seville conference, one of the first 3-day conferences we had in Cedar Rapids back in 2005, before I went to Palestine, so that's a little unusual. As Sandy said, been to Palestine on some Presbyterian trips, peacemaking-oriented trips, and it looks like now I'm going to have some sort of connection with ICAD through the Canadian House Convention. That's all sort of amorphous at this point, but exciting.
I'm Henry Whitwater, I live in Tennessee. I'm chair of the steering committee for the United Methodists for Bible Support. I've been on the steering committee for the campaign and on the board of trustees for CAUSA, and locally I'm on to Citizens for Justice. And I'm using that and that's one of my opportunities today, which is great.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's always great to hear all the expertise and just experience and where everyone's coming from. It blows my mind. Everyone brings to the room. So we're going to go probably, I'm not sure how much we are on time, but before we start the film, I think I'll just give in a nutshell, and like I said, we'll move to more information afterwards, but we do want to get going on the film itself. But basically, quick overview of the No Way to Treat a Child campaign. The campaign is it's a tool that seeks, through the lens of focusing on the detainment and issue and ill treatment of children, Palestinian children. As Erica mentioned at the beginning, it's a way. It's a hook, but it's also an issue at the same time. So we are able to engage both the civil society, whether it's your friends, family, the communities you belong to, churches, and also other organizations, justice-based organizations. Everyone cares about children, well, at least we hope. We are able to engage people that maybe were like, I don't work on Palestine, or that's not my issue, but I do, we claim, or my group claims, or as a person claims, you care about children. So it's a gateway into the conversation itself. And the other side of it, the policy side, so that's like part one, but then the other side is that we do have real change and a strategy in place to actually be affecting this issue specifically. So as we are dismantling various parts or taking on isolated components of the occupation itself, this is an isolated component that we can make a difference on. I mean, it may seem in the larger picture small, but it's piece by piece along the way. So we have both the resources and educational tools already available for community groups that are organizing all across the country to do outreach to their churches and communities, and we'll get into more of that at the end. But then as well as once we are educating and engaging these people, then the next step is getting them to push to these larger national and federal advocacy measures. So like I said, we're going to get into more detail in that at the end. We're going to go ahead and probably start the film now, just because I'm getting worried about if we're going to have enough time. I want to make sure we get to the action part. Yeah, I'm going to get the lights. Okay. So this is Detainment Dreams.
children are detained, blindfolded, handcuffed, they don't know their rights. Most of the time they sign papers they can't read.
It is an experience that stays and lives with the child.
For 3 days you don't know where your child is, if he's dead or alive, or what's happened, what crime did he commit. You don't know anything. And then after the child is released, the families become overprotective. The Israelis issued some guidelines and rule to honor the international standards, yet in practice, we don't see this happening. Most of the time, they don't honor these guidelines and rules.
ليلة الالتقاء كانوا بيشتغل في الأرض، قام علي قال لي تعال ساعدني، فجيت عليه وفي كان في مواجهات، بعديها رحت أتفرج ما بقيت إلا بطلع لي كلب.
في صوت خبط باقي، طلعت الجندي بيصحي بيقول لي قم يا حبيبي تعال نام. الحين أنا أول ما يشوف الواحد بني آدم بشوف إشي اللي يطمن منه، مش أول ما يشوف يطلع له جندي مع سلاح صغير اللي يرهبك.
كيف مسكوك هذا؟
زرب رجل تحت الشجرة.
يعني أنت ما كنت شايفه؟
نعم.
لكن من جندي مسكك؟ 4. وكيف حطوك جوا الجبة؟
دخلنا أول شيء على المستعمرة، قعدت ما كنتش شايف تحتي، بس كان كتير ضرب جدروا السنة الأخيرة، ودائما نظهر من كل فئة باش نادى عليك، ما رضيتش أرد عليه، ولكن ماشي قد ما قدرت عشت أنا في مني نفذت ما قدرتش، أنا ملحت لما جاء علي شتاني مرة اتخذنا على البرج، عطني في البرج وكلبشني في كلبشات بلاستيك، قاعد جاب كاس مي حبة حلو قعدت أنا بجيب ظابط جنبه بسمع بجنبه بلش يقول لي اهدى انت هنا وإن شاء الله تروح من الحكي. طلع من هذا اسمه سدسية فتني عاصمة.
حتى نزلت أتريا وأول إشي عالج الكل، شافوا أسنانك كيف عض الأمير عالج الكلب، وبعدين الأمير مسكوه بيزتوه في الجيب.
لبست جهاز حالي وكلبشوا لي ايدي ظلت نازل غطوا لي على عيني، ركبت في السيارة على اساس انهم يودوني يعتقلوني خلص.
له هذا ولد صغير عمره 11 سنة ونص، شو هذا ساوى؟ لا أنا دخل معي الخبرات، قلت له هذا شو ساوى في جيش دولة إسرائيل؟ أنتوا كلكم خايفين منها؟ لما راجع كلبش لي إياه، كلبشوا لي قلت له شو هذا شو سواك؟ شو الخوف اللي بسبب الكل عبد الرحمن ما سوى شيء. ابني في الصف التاسع ملتزم في مدرسته طلاب الشطار، زائد أنا في عندي شوية شغل في الدار، في شوية تصليحات في الدار بشتغل وهي معايا بيشتغل. بلشت سياسة الضرب في السيارة، من ركوز اللي أي شيء يخبطوا فيا لدرجة إنه وجع من جنابي فأكثر من ضرب أجتني.
رحت على سجن عسير، قبل السجن رحت على تحقيق ثاني يوم الصبحية، هذا المستشفى رجعوني على كرم سور صوبك، ظليت غادي نايم.
وين كنت نايم؟ كيف كنت نايم؟
بقيت نايم هيك جوا وأنا قاعد.
بالجيب ولا؟
لا ما أعرف شو، بس بقيت معصب.
أخذتوا لي على عينيا. الحين بلشوا الحين أنا حطوني في زاوية الجب من جوا. الجنود الحين إحنا بين رجليهم يعني. بلشوا يضربوا فينا برجليهم. أنا وعدة شباب من المخيم يعني اعتقلونا. فبلشوا بالضرب يعني. يعني 5 دقايق هم بيضربوا فينا بعد توصلنا المستوطن يعني لو إنه بعد لا طولوا معنا. بعدها حطونا طبعا مغطينا علينا كالباشين. شبحونا يعني تقريبا 3.5 كيجي. شبحونا رصاصة بعنا يعني.
إلا تجيب حملنا 2 ودونا على مركز في المستعمر. سألني شو اسمك وقديش عمرك. قعدنا هنا بعدين صار يضرب علي في حجار.
كيف
قاعد أنا قبالي منه يضرب علي في حجار.
كان الحجار يجوا فيك. أنت كنت
مكلبش
مغمض عينك ما كنت شايف.
وكان رايح جاي يضرب. بعد يمكن 5 ساعات جينا وطلعنا على السوق.
وأنا هيك الحين ما بقدرش أدافع عن نفسي لأنه أنا مربط من إيدي ومن رجلي ومغطى على عيني يعني أي واحد بضربني من ورا بعرفش منه. فبلش يضربوا فيا بشكل يعني همجي بدهم يعني كانوا بدهم يقتلوا الواحد. بعدها ركبت في الجيب أخرى مرة ودونا على مركز التحقيق.
The main philosophy of interrogation is to exert as much as pressure on the person who is under interrogation and keep his resistance as low as possible.
ودونا مركز التحقيق. يعني تلاقيت مع أكثر من ضابط. بلشوا يحققوا معي يقولوا لي تعال تخافش ما بدناش نضربك. احكي عن اللي صار معك اعترف على الشباب اللي كانوا معك ومنروحك.
بعدين صار يدخل الجنود وبشكل خوفني. ليش كان يحكي؟
شو كان يحكي لك؟ شو كان يصير لك؟
كان يقول لي اعترف انك بتضرب وعشان اروح. قلت له ما فيش علي شيء عشان اروح. قلت له ما ضربتش. يقول لي انت بس اعترف وسيب اروح. قلت له لو ضربت بقول لك بس ما ضربتش.
يعني خلاص دخلت نشرف عن الحدث زي ده وبلش يحكي معي وبدي أنا يعني أعترف. وأنا أول مرة ما اعترفتش طلعت وأخذنا عن المستوصف يعني تقريبا في 3 كيلو من هذا المستوصف. 4 مرات أخذ مرجعني مشي. مرة دخلت عند الشرطة بلش الحقيقة أنا ما قدرتش ما قدرت إلا أبدأ معه. لو دخل لي واحد طويل وضخم لو بضربني على رجلي اعترفت حجري.
بده يعني احكي اشي ما عملتوش عشان ابلي حالي وابلي غيري. فانا بقول له يعني احكي اشي مش عامله انا يعني اشي صعب هذا على البني ادم. فاضطر انه يصير يضربني. مسكني من راسي وخبط راسي في الطاولة ضربني يعني بوكس عضبني.
كان في شخص واحد يحقق بدون دور جنبه. بعدين دخل كمان شخص إلى سوالف وطقيق. الضغط تاني مد ايده ويضرب. استخدم الضغط النفسي أشترش. بعد كده باخذ أخوك بجيب أهلك بهد الدار بسوي أي شيء. يعني وصلت إنه يقول لي أنا بطلع أخذ أخوك الحين. زي ما استبدت دخل علي الجسم شرحت له الجسم زي إيش الجسم وصار معي هيك يعني ولا صار شيء يعني أجت واحدة علي دخل علي عشان يسمع بس وما سوى شيء يعني ما كنت رجلي أنا قلت كما كانت يعني منفوخة مش رايحة بعد شعر. لما أجوا علي هذول في مؤسسة بيحكون فرجوا رجلي شاف رجلي مش تسويش قلت لهم عن رجلي قلت لهم الشباب كيف. بعدين جاب مجلد كانت تيجي جنازة عند البلد وجاب مجلد ففتحه قدامي شفت الصور ما اعترفتش على شيء. كان صور للشباب يعني دون اعترافات شيء. ممكن قعدت 5 دقايق بعد 5 ساعات بعدين طلعني على البصمات. بصمة وترجع التحقيق بصمة وترجع التحقيق. تمنى نلقي لي صورة الأخير لو بقول لي روح بديش أتحقق أكمل معك، خلاص روح.
واحد اجاني بيقول لي سلم عليك، بيقول انا المحامي تبعك حاليا.
عرف عن حاله؟
لا ما اعرفش عن حاله اسمه. قال لي انا المحامي تبعك ابوك حضني. طبعا انا وظيفتي اني احميك من الاعداء ومن الكلام يعني. قال لي انت عارف فلسطيني زيك، اعترف على شيء بسيط وبربحك يعني. اعترف بالله مثل حجرين ثلاث وروح. بقول له كيف يعني احكي اشي مش عامله انا؟ عارفك محامي تبعي، بحكي لك الاشي صار معي، اكذب عليك؟ ما انت محامي تبعي دافع علي. فلو قلت لي قال صار بده يضربني. استغربت انا من اسلوبي، يعني المحامي ما بضرب، المحامي بدافع عنك. اجى بتضربني الا قلت لي اذا ما بتترفش بسجنك 6 شهور.
وبلش يقول شلت الواعي، بلش يفتش الهوية وهذا. أنا مشلح، طلعت على البوسطة، طلعت البوسطة وأنا مشلح، قضيت تقريبا 4 ساعات في البوسطة. 4 ساعات يعني تجمدت، يعني صرت ثلج هذا. وبلشت أقتل البوسطة عشان يفتح لي ولا حياة من متنادي. وصار وتقييم محاولة آخر شيء فتح الباب بقوة، فتح علي يضربني. فأنا يعني سكت، مش خاسني. فقلت له سجاد، هو مدرس، بلشت أحكي معه قلت له سجاد، قلت تعال ورا. أنا مشيت رحت وراه وجاب لي بنطلون البلوزة. أنا وقتها كنت لابس بنطلون الرياضة نص شم وبضي دقيقة اشتبت الوالي تسجل فيها.
When they put a Palestinian child in solitary confinement, this child will be ready to give a confession when the Israeli interrogator interrogates him, because he wants to get rid of this situation.
We pass out brochures to them to know more about their rights when they're detained by the Israeli army. We also tell them a few stories and, of what happened to other children.
مشيت يمكن حوالي 5 كيلو وأنا مكلبش ومغمض ما بشوفش.
ودوني على هذا غرفة صغيرة زي الزنزانة، شبيب الزنزانة، أكل ممنوع، ريحة كريهة، شبابيك ما في شيء. وأكثر من واحد بيقول وأمرات بحطك لحالك، يعني تعرف كيف بدك تقضي وقتك ودنيا سكر، وإذا بدك تنام ما بتقدرش مش لابس شيء. هذا يعني خلاني إني يعني ما أنامش. ما جتني فترة يعني أظل نايم في الدار، ما أقومش يعني من كثر من التعب بعد ما أروح من السجن.
وفي ال40 يوم هذول 14 محكمة حضرنا كده، أيضا مسجلات مع الأستاذية المسك 14 محكمة حضرنا.
أنا توتر صعب يعني كل شيء مدن خاص نص إني قضينا رمضان يعني. أنا توتر صعب، ومع وضع غزة اللي صار وقتها زادوا علينا الضغط جوا، يعني كل شيء بذل، الأكل الخربان في تاريخه كله يجي بس. دقيقة ما يوم فجأة واحدة الساعة يعني تقريبا 6 الصبح لو جيني شحروف، قالت نستنى على 8 في من المطلعون، أطلعون من القسم قعدوني في الامتناع تقريبا على 9 الليل. من المطلعون الامتناع أعطوا كل واحد اللي إله نظل معنا بالمحكمة هناك، أعطونا إياهم وطلعنا وعاودنا رجعنا امتناع. قعدنا يعني خلص مع السكر السجن كلياته، طلعونا على البوسطة وأخذونا يعني ورفونا على البوابة أوفر. بدور على اللي فيش حدا اللي ملاقيني، لما باقيين قبل اليوم يستنى فيا، يعرفوش إن يوم الاثنين براوة. فركبت سيارة ورحت روحت، أنا جيت دخلت على الفجر يعني ما فيش حدا بعد ولا بيت. دخلت وكملت حياتي.
لبست أواعي السجن، ضلتني في السجن هنا، لا أواعي لا دفع ما فيش يعني، وساقع وفيش شبابيك مسكر عليك، لا أكل لا مي.
خلوك تحكي مع أبوك،
بحكي له بدي أحكي له مع أبوي، بدي أنا أكل وين أنا يعني ما بعرفش وين أنا يعني من حقه. قال لي لا أنت الحين بحكي أنا معه عشان أحط لك محامي.
حكموا عليك ولا كيف؟
حكموا علي شهرين واتفقنا.
قضيت الشهرين؟ شهرين وكفالة. ليش الكفالة؟
2000.
We notice behavioral changes with children after they get released from detention.
I believe that every child who is interrogated and incarcerated by the Israeli authorities is psychologically affected as a result of this experience. The level of the affection depends on the age of the child when he has been arrested, the methods and techniques of ill treatment and torture used against him, and also the period that he spent inside Israeli prisons, because the life inside Israeli prisons is very harsh life. More than 60% of Palestinian children are incarcerated in prison inside Israel, which is against the international law. During their stay in these prisons, especially during the first 3 months, they are not allowed to receive family visits, and also they are not allowed to make telephone calls. And for almost all Palestinian children, this experience is the first experience for them to be separated from their families.
The children were completely changed. I mean, the way that they react about this, I mean, how they treat their parents well after the detention. I mean, it's something that really affects the respect of the children to his parents, also to his siblings, brothers or sisters, and also to his acceptance of education, you know, and just improving and developing himself. A lot of them, you know, just decided to drop out of school.
حياة الطفل الفلسطيني طبعا كلها خوف وذل وقهر وكل إشي يعني بتعلق التعليم، كل ذل وقهر، يعني إشي بجميلة بسووه. والتجربة اللي بخوضها الطفل الفلسطيني مش سهلة.
شعور لا يوصف.
Most of them, they leave their schools. They don't go to schools anymore. They just go to work, or some of them they leave from Hebron to live in a faraway village where it's maybe further from the soldiers and the settlers and all this confrontation, so they can maybe relax and recover from the trauma that they had and that they experience in their life.
Even the image of the father who is right there in the house and is not being able to actually defend basically his family from these Israeli soldiers is actually for the long run is eroding the vision or the image of the father who is supposedly, you know, protect the family against any danger, while, you know, the kid in the back of his mind, well, the Israeli soldiers came in and he couldn't do anything.
بالنسبة للشعور هو شعور مأساوي، بتحس ولادك يعني مميزين، بتحس إن أنتم بيطيروا منك وما بتفقد السيطرة عليهم، يعني حتى بتحس إنهم بينهاروا وبتجربوا مش قادر تعمل لهم شيء، وخاصة أمير إحنا عندنا مشكلة مش بسيطة. يعني ولا أي طريقة أخي مصطفى معانا. يعني شعورك أتمنى يعني على العالم إن يوجهوا رسالتهم بالضغط على إسرائيل بعدم اعتقال الأطفال، لأن الأطفال يعني بيتم معاملتهم في السجن يعني معاملة مش طبيعية.
the movie, that there's so much happening in the movie, and sometimes it's hard to catch all the subtitles. So if you want to write this down, you can find this film on YouTube. It's just listed under Detaining Dreams. If you want to go back and rewatch it, that might be helpful. So we just wanted to open up the floor, and I guess I'll just start with my personal reaction. It's hard to watch this without physically getting sick. When I watch the film myself, I see the faces of the Palestinian children. I see my family. Sorry, it's kind of hard to the boy in the film, Abed, he looks just like my brother-in-law, Ahmed. And I see him, and as I'm sure you guys could see, the anguish and the pain in these children's faces. And I read the report that Katie and her colleagues Phyllis and whatnot have put together, and it was just, I couldn't even read it for long periods of time. I had to read like a page and then put it down and then come back, take a break and then come back to it, because the realities of what are happening to these children are just really unfathomable. I don't think, yes, that report, I don't think any parent could imagine their own child going through what these kids do. And absolutely every single child that's been incarcerated has PTSD. They all need counseling, Is Israel providing counseling? I don't think so. But this is something that they're going through trauma. This is something that is will most likely affect the rest of their life. It will affect their interpersonal relationships, whoever they get married to. It will affect, it might even affect their children, because if they don't get help, psychologically to deal with the trauma that they've been through, it could trigger also just a cycle of abuse and violence within their own family. So it's hard to watch. It's heartbreaking. But we wanted to open up the floor and ask you all if you'd like to share your thoughts or feelings. How did you feel when you while you were watching the film, or what are your thoughts?
I have a question. We know there's Muslim Palestinians, Christian Palestinians. Does this happen to both?
Yes.
Or just to Muslim?
All.
Everybody, even the Christian
Yes.
Palestinians.
For instance, one of the largest refugee camps is in Bethlehem, near Bethlehem is in the West Bank. People, when they go on these religious tours, don't realize they have left Israel and gone into the West Bank. Actually, a friend of mine it was last week, called, and he had just the night before talk with his friends and family. Actually, we had chatted with Skype, and then, we had talked the night before. The following evening, his mom was at a refugee camp. It was great. Christian Palestinian home. And both of his children were taken, both of his sons. They were 12 and 14. This was awesome.
Are there only sons taking or daughters too?
And now that they are now taking daughters. So I can give you in a nutshell again, the limited time makes this hard. But let me see. So where are we at from here? Actually, last year alone was just the deadliest year in over a decade in the West Bank for Palestinian children. We had over 32 child fatalities at the hands of the IDF and security guards. Already in the first half of 2017, the Israeli soldiers have, during these arrests, have actually killed 8 Palestinian children. Currently, right now, there's over 700 children, Palestinian children, in the military court system. So in the military court system, these children are being held, as Phyllis mentioned earlier in her talk, there's 2 different court systems. There is the juvenile court system, the civil law society that we would expect here for our citizens. There's a juvenile court. In Israel, if you are Palestinian, child or adult, Palestinian children, all through military court, and they can be held under administrative detention. And the definition of administrative detention is that you can be held without charge or trial for an indefinite period of time. This is illegal under international law. There is no accountability to it. also because it goes through a military court system and they have their own protection. So even when our colleagues within Israel itself, human rights groups and legal kind of watch groups of the court system of Israel, they're not even allowed to be coming into the military court systems of Israel. So it's been very hard to get the data and monitor. Our partners on the who helped us develop, or who worked together to do the campaign, several of my colleagues for Defense for Children International Palestine are the representatives you see being interviewed who are helping on the ground these children, as well as collecting the data ongoing and providing legal representation when they can, and trying to give us, for instance, a report that we compiled. This was from 2016. These are free and available. I don't have if anybody wants one, it's kind of a heavy-duty report, but please, when you sign out, just like maybe put a little R by your name, and I can have it mailed to you. So there's a section there, but as well as some handouts. A little more into some recent data that.
And one thing was shocking. Like, I was reading the report, and like almost the entire time reading the report, my jaw was just like, I can't believe this is happening. You know, what's the longest the sentence for throwing a rock? Is it 10 or 15 years?
It can be. It
Yeah.
can be.
So just for throwing a rock, they can get 10 to 15 years in prison. I mean, that's just.
And they don't even have to throw a rock. So the system itself is the forced confessions are in Hebrew. Most of these children don't speak Hebrew, and sometimes the interrogation process can last up to 12 hours. They're prevented from sleeping or eating, or when they are spoken to in Arabic, it's usually through the form of threats. So the only words when they're hearing the psychological trauma is when they do hear their own language that they're understanding. It is either in the form of a threat. We often have children that come out of it actually missing or being scared to actually leave their interrogator, because their interrogator sometimes is the only person, maybe in the span of 5 to 8 months, this child was in this prison, was the only other person, an adult that would speak Arabic to them. So they started to form like a Stockholm syndrome. Yeah. I mean, and it just goes on and on. This is all very intentional. So we saw an 800% increase from the use of the detainment of children prior to 2014. So starting kind of around 2014 we noticed it had always been used, but an 800% increase of the detainment of children. It was massive. And we started to look into the reporting and the reasoning why. This is also, it's very intentional. Is if you can traumatize the child, you have control of the parents. This is how you squash uprisings, resistance movements. Now the parents, if they were politically involved, that's the only thing now, the only choice they have is to protect their child, even though they still can't. It can stall a whole village. And Jody, when we were on our delegation and staying in the homes of these families throughout the West Bank, and hearing the children themselves and the families themselves while in their home describing their experiences of the night raid, of the soldiers coming in at night and taking the children, and just beginning to end, it is all illegal under international law, from the night raid, from the zip tying of the children's hands to the cars that they're transported in, which is contracted by Volvo. Volvo specifically has a contract with Israel that has designed these transport vehicles to transport children in these situations. So
BDS target.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, when we move forward with action, it's horrendous. Sorry, who are you listening?
Oh, I was just going to comment of noticing the trauma of not only family members like parents or the older woman at the same, but also the little girl. I mean, the trauma, the fear, probably anger too. So I find it, I've been wondering about the purpose of this, and so to kind of control or squelch parents from uprising, but it would seem like it would have the opposite effect, that these children, not only the ones that are detained, but their siblings and others, get more angry people and more likely to be recruited into some kind of terrorism. So it struck me that little girl sitting there is not just the kids that are detained and traumatized. It's others their loved ones.
And night raids are a regular procedure. That's just what they do. They come and get them at 2 or 3
They've gone on for
in the
years,
morning.
but in the past, many of them have been adults or young men.
Yes.
I mean, I remember in Bethlehem, way back in '06, being woke up at night and running to the window just to see a military vehicle go down the street and stop. And you knew that's what was happening, but it was young men, 20 to 40-something men that were being profiled for that they were robbed or had been associated with wrong people. And now, as you say, it's shifted to their children, younger people, which is
Causing psychological terror.
but international law violation to them. I mean, if you have ever had a hard time describing that, what violation of international law is, watch that film. Because I think that was a real powerful example of that. That's not right anywhere.
Yes.
And I think people that are new to the issue particularly, you could show them a video like this and say, wow. You know, it's very impactful that way. You can see that's not right anywhere.
Yes.
And plus we're probably pay for it, so.
Exactly, yes. Yes.
But some of the words went by so fast. Like, there was somebody was giving some kind of statistic about 65% of the children. What was that? It sounded like 65%.
So right now, children under the age of 18, they represent, so they're 46% of the 4.6.8 million Palestinians living in the occupied Palestinian territories. And out of those 40, half of the people in Palestine, occupied territories, I can't even speak today, are children. 60% of those children will be incarcerated at one point in their life as a child. That's what we're saying. So it's 3 out of 4 children right now. We're saying, like I said, 800% increase in 2014.
Just wanted to add, as I mentioned, I'm a Palestinian, and in 1986, okay, I was 17, almost 17, not even quite 17, and my best friend, the same age, we're about 2 weeks apart. I don't know if you're aware of how important high school degrees are in our culture. If you don't have a high school degree, you can't go to college, you can't work, nobody hires you even to come back with a PhD from some other country, and you don't present a high school diploma. You know, they will just say, okay, well, we need to get a diploma. Find a way to get us a diploma in order to get membership in guilds or whatever. So anyway, my friend was detained several months before our midterm exams. And those midterm exams, if you fail one, you have to repeat the whole year. That was the system. So his parents were aware that this could happen, so they came to our house and they asked my parents if they could have me and him be sent to a relative of his in a totally different town, just over Land Day, which is the end of March, so that to avoid any incident that they might expect to happen. And lo and behold, of course, my parents said yes, and we left for about a week to go to his uncle's house in a totally different town. Sure enough, one night before Land Day, soldiers came knocking on his door, his parents' door, asking for him, and they said he's not here. We don't know where he is, of course. And he got saved basically just by doing that. And that's in 1986. So what I'm hearing here, as heartbreaking as it may be, this has been ongoing forever. It just gotten worse.
What's excuse my ignorance, what's Land Day?
In end of March, 31st of March, that is a day that is observed. It's when Israel confiscated areas within what is Israel proper now from Palestinian Israeli citizens, and they revolted against it, and I think 10 Palestinians were killed during those demonstrations, and from that day on, that day has been declared as Land Day, and it's a big event where demonstrations take place every year on that day, and so it's observed everywhere in Palestine, not just on the Israeli side.